Want me to admit?
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the Liberated Nurse Entrepreneur Summit Takeaways and Coaching, Laser Coaching Session on day 3. We are halfway. Well, this is the middle day anyway, 3 down and 2 to go. And I'm really looking forward to seeing who's here tonight and what your takeaways are so far from the first 3 days. And your questions and challenges. So does it look like, Teresa, does it look like everybody's in the room now?
Oh, here's some more people. Hold on, I'm coming.
Okay, no problem.
There we go.
So for those of you who haven't been with us before on these evening Zooms, I'll give you a little orientation. You probably recognize me, Sharon Burch, who's the host of the summit. I'm accompanied by Jan Walter and Teresa Walding, if you want to wave, ladies, who are 2 of the Liberated Nurse nurse coaches on my team. And thank you so much to both of you for being here tonight to help me out with this session. And I also want to say hi to Marcia Smith. Hi, Marcia. Marcia's a graduate of our Liberated Nurse Business Incubator. And I want to say hi to 2 of our esteemed presenters who are here with us tonight, Leanne Meyer and Bonney Schaub. Yes, thank you both for being here. So all of you can feel free to chime in tonight if you have something to add to what I'm saying. And, or you can, of course, everyone's welcome to use the chat to comment on the summit and to comment on each other's posts or comments. And feel free to also share your contact information with each other if you'd like to, because when nurse entrepreneurs gather, it's a rare opportunity to network and among like-minded people. And it can be really valuable for ourselves personally and professionally, both. So the way we do this is we have about 10 minutes of time to share takeaways that you've gotten from the presentations and or the gifts, and that can include any of the 3 days that we've had so far. And oh gosh, Teresa, you were a presenter. I am so sorry. I just saw that in the chat. Absolutely, you have a rocking business yourself, and you are a presenter. So we have 3 presenters here tonight. Oh boy, so sorry. I just
Good. I just thought it was funny.
I'm glad you corrected that. I'm glad you added that. So yes, takeaways and questions and comments about the presentations and the gifts. And then after about 10 minutes of that or so, we will go into laser coaching. And there are 3 things we need to know if you want a laser coaching session. That is your name, your location, and your top business question or challenge. Okay. Now, Sarah has raised her hand. So thank you, Sarah. Go ahead and unmute and share with us what's on your mind.
Yeah, I'm here to share today. Really excited watching the presenters today. Some takeaways. I really like Linda Bark's presentation just because she seemed like so childlike to me. Like her curiosity and playfulness was so fun to watch when she talked about her ideas. I like the distinction she made between like counseling or therapy and coaching. She's like, well, therapy's early trauma and coaching's more like present focused and moving forward for creating possibility. I liked that she was talking about she could still remember the $55 in her hand. And even I could see it with her. And I kind of thought about that visual of maybe I should think about the money in my hand. Of she said it was a 20, a 10, and a 5. And she goes, I still remember, oh my God, someone's gonna pay me to do my this work, you know, because I think that's been a theme so far. It's like, well, can I get paid for this? Or will people pay for this?
Yeah.
The other thing I thought was really cool.
Yeah, excuse me, Sarah. I'm just going to ask you to pause just a second. And that's because your bandwidth seems, your sound is breaking up a little bit, and it makes it a little difficult to understand all your words. Is there, if you think you might have low bandwidth, you might, yes, just take yourself off camera, and that should free up some of your bandwidth. And we can hear you better, probably. Let's try that.
Okay. I switched over to Wi-Fi. Maybe that will help.
Okay.
And I can stop my video too.
Yeah.
The
try
other
that.
thing I took away was Teresa, the 3 principles.
You went away.
Yeah.
We can't hear you, Sarah.
That's tough because
Could she put it in the chat?
I'll put it in the chat.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Well,
okay.
you're back now.
Yeah, you sound good now, but
Okay.
if you have trouble again, let's have you do that. Go to the chat.
Okay. It was the mind plus consciousness plus thought is your reality. And this idea that your thoughts direct your life and, you know, help manufacture the meaning that you assign to different things in life. And she started talking about like choice and free will. And it reminded me, because I went through the Integrative Nurse Coach Academy and I have my book sitting here. And I was like, we had a whole chapter on like choice and awareness. And so when I was listening to her talk, I was flipping back through it and it reminded me of this thing that was huge for me. It was like willingness, willlessness, and willfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered at that time that I realized like so much of my life at that point had been directed by willfulness and like exerting, you know, I'm gonna make it happen no matter what, and I'm gonna push and I'm gonna drive and I'm gonna get there. You know, just this like striving, but almost like a effort. It was so much effort and energy. And so there was a shift for me as well of like looking into what's willingness. And it was kind of like this open, expansive, and it's flexible, it's adaptable, it's inclusive. And so I was really interested. I downloaded like all the gifts today, but I just thought there were so many cool takeaways, and those were a few that were exciting for me.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. Thank you. Marcia, I see you called out shared one of your one of your takeaways. And I wonder if you'd like to unmute your microphone, because that theory that you enjoyed, you know, the presenter is right here. And Bonney. Oh, isn't that the vulnerability model? Bonney, isn't that your model?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah. So Marcia, what did you enjoy? What was powerful for you around that?
Well, that was one of the models that going through Inca as well kind of stuck out to me, and I kept referring back to it. And I go back into my little book and review it quite frequently. And just recently I did too. I'm coaching a woman that, you know, fits really tightly in one of those areas. And it's just like, how do you break her out of that? But no, it's just my takeaway on all of this so far is that I'm blown away by everyone's tenacity and advocacy for nursing and having nursing move forward. And I'm super proud that I chose this path. And I just feel like I'm on the still like in the infantile stage when I listen to all of these amazing presenters, and hopefully, you know, my just sitting back and letting things evolve and being open to new doors and challenges, and you know, will just keep me moving forward like they've all done. And I think that's what I'm enjoying the most out of most of the presentations. Just picture yourself, just keep doing it, just keep doing it. And I love that, you know, just go through the fear and take a chance and have an idea and try to put it out there. So
Yeah.
that's not vulnerable. I don't know what is.
Yeah.
I so appreciate your comments about that. I mean, the vulnerability model was something that I had created many, many years ago, and it came out of a time when I was working in an addiction center and I was doing all the intakes. And with all of the different kinds of judgments and theories about addiction, the essence of every single person I worked with was profound vulnerability from very early varieties of trauma. And so that whole idea of how do we use our energy? How can I help this person to bring their energy into a creative place? And that's where those kinds of aspects of willful, will less, willing, how can we help to come to that place? And really the essence of willingness was trust and opening. So it's, you know, it's a huge part of everything that I've done in my work. And it was a profound, I had been working with a nurse colleague and we were doing all the intakes and there were all these theories about addiction. And we said, every single one of them is suffering. It's not like their genes are making them addicts, because we had a wide range of patients that we were working with in terms of various socioeconomic groups. We had veterans, Vietnam veterans. We had, you know, all kinds of survivors. And I know when I first started to teach that, I had done that when I had first created, because there was a book that I wrote about it. And I did a presentation to nurses at a holistic center in the city. And there were so many, they were all nurses. And at the end of the class, after I had finished the presentation, I would say maybe a dozen of them came up to me afterwards and said, you know, they were all in recovery. And they said, it was such a gift to be able to think about my process in this way, because it's the first time that I didn't feel judged or I didn't feel labeled in some way. And you were really speaking to my soul. And it was just, I thought these nurses are so brave that they all came up and told me that in this setting. And just even now, it can bring tears to my eyes. But I think it's the essence of all of the challenges we have. How can we find a place in ourselves that we can trust and believe is whole? Because the addiction is not the entity, the whole person. It's, you know, it's how this person has protected themselves, and how can I help this person to be safe? So yeah. The feedback was phenomenal.
Thank you, Bonney. We're so lucky that you are here in the conference, or the summit, I mean, and then also tonight. And I feel that way about all of our presenters, of course. But I do want to say that I feel it's especially sacred that we have so many nurse entrepreneur elders together in one place in this summit. It may never happen again. Who knows, but these are real wisdom keepers who have lived experience that is very I feel my words fail me, I guess. I think you can fill in the blank. It's just very precious. So there were a few comments just now about what Bonney said. Let's go back to that. So Leanne wants to know, Bonney, would you say that the addiction is the symptom of the disease, not the disease?
Well, the disease, I'm not quite sure what the reference is to the disease. It's the addiction is the process, and then within a medical system, it gets labeled as a disease with all of, you go into DSM-3 and it's bing, 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 and all of that. But the underlying vulnerability and pain that has affected this person it's very diverse. I mean, we see, all kinds of, I was struck very much because the community I was working with, I said it was very diverse. So I had a number of people, they were middle-class kids and all, but they had been growing up with a gravely ill parent. And so early in this person's life, there was a loss. And then it's not, this is way back when. I think hopefully today there's much more understanding of the power of that. But so, the loss of a sibling, and it wasn't processed. And that, I remember one woman I worked with, her little brother died of cancer when she was 9 years old. And she and her siblings, no one explained to her. They had been sent to a relative, and then they came home and the babies, all the baby stuff was gone. No one ever explained to them what happened. And she described how she was 9 years old, and she and her siblings, they went at night and they started drinking alcohol in the closet. And that's also an interesting thing, that sometimes when people, especially with alcohol, because it's more, at least back then, it was the main thing that was available. Oftentimes, if you help someone to identify the first time that they used a substance, and in this case, alcohol, that's a hint to you that something happened around that time. Because so many people who become significantly challenged with addiction, they start like junior high school, at very early ages. So it's one of the things that gets me, the easy availability of all different kinds of substances right now is of concern to me.
Thank you, Bonney. I appreciate all that you shared on that.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's turn now to some coaching. If anyone wants it, I haven't seen anybody post in the comments yet. I just want, I want to make sure you have the space to receive that if you want it. And if nobody, says they want some, then we can go back to chatting about anything that is on your minds and hearts.
Sharon, Sarah had a question in the about minimum viable product in the chat. I didn't know if you wanted to
Okay. Yes,
comment on that.
I see her comment, but I don't see a question with it.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing it
Oh.
out, though. I can easily miss things in the chat because I don't look at it that much, really. While I'm here, I'm looking at the people. So I'm curious, out of the speakers you've heard so far, who do you feel like you relate with yourself? When somebody's story, do you see yourself in some of these stories? Sarah shared that she saw herself in one of the stories that Linda Bark shared about when she first received money for her services, and she could hardly believe it. I know I felt the same. I still feel the same way when somebody pays me because I'm giving from my heart. And when somebody pays me, I don't know, it's like still really affirming. It's a special thing. It doesn't feel, here's a little soapbox for me. I feel that our society has become way too transactional and our relationships are suffering from it because our focus is on the transactions. And so I've made conscious choices in my business to build it through relationships, to be present for relationships. And that includes the relationship with those around me, as well as the relationship to myself. And, that takes practice, honestly. I'm still learning it. It used to be that I was always doing for others and not even noticing the effect that all that doing for others was having on me. But as I've gone through life and learned some hard lessons sometimes, I've found that it's just super important that we are also in relationship with ourselves. And some elders that have taught, that I've learned from, use the term right relationship. So I like that. It means that it's honoring both sides, it's reciprocal, that it takes both sides into account. And I think that is extremely important in life, and it is often lacking in business. So it's part of my mission to bring that forward. And I believe that nurses already understand and embrace this principle, and it's important to us. It's just a matter now of finding our way into the business world and keeping that principle at the forefront and keeping our identity strong in our values like that.
Can I just comment? I really appreciated Mickey Erickson's presentation in terms of reimagining, not like regaining nursing. You know, that we had been so pulled away from the soul of nursing that was probably an element in why we did it. And one of the things that's always so striking when you go is, the tension and whatever it is that's going on in a unit, it's normal. Do you know what I mean? It's like it gets normalized as opposed to being able to say, wait a minute. And this is what we need to change. And I think that's about us feeling empowered and really fully appreciating the depth of our profession and our knowledge and the whole philosophy that underlies all that we do, rather than getting squeezed into the, remember, it was like we used soap back in the day. The subject, the observation, the assessment, and the plan. You had to have those four things. So, and then I remember we'd say, well, I experienced this, but how am I going to put that in those notes? And now with the computer stuff, it's even more difficult, isn't it? Because if you don't have the right point, you can't get to the next the next step of it. So it's so important for us to be very, I mean, you know, we're functioning, so many of us are functioning within a system, but we need to really be open to challenging it and not being afraid.
Mhm. Thank you, Bonnie. I I would say I don't know if it's possible to not be afraid, but we can do it afraid. Like what Bina said the other day, just
Yeah,
of course we don't want to be foolish and put ourselves in danger. So fear is important to check in first of all. Am I really in danger or am I just afraid? And if it's the latter, then we can just decide, we can choose to do it afraid. It looks like we have someone who'd like some coaching. Peggy Gensel. Do you want to unmute? Hi, Peggy.
Hello. So I have a question. I'm planning on doing online nurse coaching. And of course, Texas has a compact, we're a compact state. So how do I go about addressing coaching people across the state lines? Is there something specific that I need to be aware of? Because I used to be a travel nurse, so I get, my agencies would do all the paperwork for me to actually work in another state. But how does that change with still being in Texas, but coaching somebody in another state?
Well, we have Teresa who teaches this principle, this answer. And so would you like to go at it first?
So as best I understand it, and there are some people who might think differently, but in the compact states, you can coach in any of the compact states. If you do not have a license in the state that the client lives in, you cannot coach them in that state.
Okay.
So, although most of the states are becoming compact states to include California, surprisingly, I suspect that there will be more, the rest of the states at some point will become part of the compact. But
so if I wanted to branch out, I would apply in those other states that are not compact states?
yes.
Okay. Okay. I don't need to do anything with my license with the attached compact states.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Yay, I'm thinking on the right page.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there is some talk out there. Lori Brown did a podcast or a webinar not too long ago because there was a little bit of conversation that nurses were saying that they were protecting their nursing license by not claiming to be a nurse coach. But if you have an active nursing license, you are held to your licensure, whether you call yourself a nurse or not. So there was a little bit of confusion for a moment because I'm not a lawyer. I just know that I'm bound by the state that I'm licensed in to abide by those rules. So I just put that out there because there's some different schools of thought, but we're still new. Nurse coaching is still new and we're still finding our way. But as best I understand it, that is the rules.
Okay. Thank you.
And
you're welcome.
Thank you, Teresa. And I'll just add one small detail to that, which is we're talking here about nurses who are all nurses except advanced practice.
Right.
So if you have an NP, or midwife or any of the advanced practice licenses, then in those cases, we're bound to only the state that we're licensed. There is no compact yet across state lines.
I'm just a BSN, so.
Yeah.
And one more qualifying thing, we can do education in all 50 states.
Okay.
So
even without the compact, we can do
even
education.
without the compact, yes.
Okay, great. I see Christy Cotter from Georgia has a comment. Christy, are you in a position where you can, yeah, hi, can you unmute and share what's on your mind?
Yeah. I was just curious, I guess if anybody, including you, especially if you had any I guess, tips for doing visualization and trying, because a lot of the things, especially the gifts that we've got, talk about your ideal future, or if you were going to, what would your future self tell you, like all those kind of exercises. And I have a really big trouble with seeing my future self, I guess. I don't see anything. It's like hazy, and I have nothing. I've always kind of been that way. Like I'm not very good at future. I'm very like in the present. So I guess any tips on how to get started with that would be wonderful. Sorry if I'm not making sense.
You're making
I'm trying to
total
think of how to
sense.
put it. Yeah, like I see nothing. So
Okay.
what do people do?
Great question. And I bet there's a lot of different answers here in this group that can help you. I have something I'll share, but I'm going to hold back and wait to be last and see what comes forward from the group. So who has active visualization practice and has some tips for Christy when she sees nothing?
Well, I have good news for her. You don't have to see it all. The present moment awareness is exactly where you do the creating for your future. You make the plans for now. You can't know what the future will look like, but you can have an idea of where you want to go and live into that space. It's like when you started nursing school, you had no idea what that would be like. But as you move through the process, the path became more clear.
And I'd like to add something to that because
Yeah,
one of the,
she's talking.
oh, I'm sorry, were you not finished? Did you have more to
No,
say?
no, no. I thought she was saying something, but it's okay. You're on mute, Christy. Okay.
Well, what I struggle with is the word visualization, okay? Because the imagination is not just visual. And there are people, if you put them into a place, a quiet place and inner reflection, some people, they see no images, visual images at all, but they may hear, they may be an auditory type. And so they have some words and thoughts that come to them. And then that's when we're training people and working with this, it's very important to help the person that you're working with as well as for yourself to understand their mode, because it's not unusual for someone to not get a visual image or specific words, but get a sense. So it's that's why I struggle with the word guided imagery, because it's like, okay, you're going to see this and then you're going to see that. And for so many people, we can't assume that that's going to be a help to them or that they would even be able to do it. And so it's important to reassure the person that there's no right or wrong way. We're just going to go inside and become aware, because it's all about awareness training. So I appreciate that question, because I think it's a very, very important one. So thank you very much, Christy.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you both, Teresa and Bonney. Does anyone else want to share? Was that helpful to you, Christy?
Yeah, I guess I never thought about like not actually seeing things, but that does make sense that maybe I'm just one of the people that can't see things. So I'll try to like maybe listen to more about feelings, or if I have words or something that come to mind. So I think that is very helpful.
Great. Great. My 2 cents to add is simply that I treat it like daydreaming. And I think our culture has gotten away from daydreaming quite a lot with our ever increasing pressure to focus, which of course we need. But sometimes we also need the opposite, which is just this hazy your description of hazy actually might be the first step for you to just let your focus soften and relax and be nondescript. It is for me. I find I really can't visualize accurately if I'm trying to do it. It's not a try thing. It's more like getting relaxed and allowing myself to just relax. And then I find that thoughts and feelings and sometimes images, they just come of their own. They show up, and I just let those kind of drift in and drift out. And if something is really a big aha, it gets my attention. There's no doubt about it. And of course, those are the ones that I pay the most attention to. So that's my approach.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone's input.
Oh, this conversation tonight is taking some really fun turns, and I really appreciate everyone who's been participating. How about some others? I know that each of you has thoughts and feelings, and who else wants to share? Feel free to share in the chat if you don't want to talk. It's fine. It's just equally fine.
I
Okay.
will go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. Was somebody else going to go?
No.
Okay. So I've gotten so much from every single person. And earlier, Sharon, when you asked if we could see ourselves in one of the speakers, it's funny because there's something that each person will say or mention, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and it gets me so excited. And I'm like, I want to do that. I can do that. Like I can see myself in that role. And it's just like, and then someone, and it just left me, who mentioned this just a couple minutes ago about you don't need to like hurry. And I have felt like for the longest time, well, the last year really, that I haven't made progress because I haven't had a client like after my pro bono and everything. But I'm like, every single day I am thinking about nurse coaching and how my future is going to look different eventually. And I'm like, I need to stop putting a time frame on it. And I just wrote that down, and I forget who mentioned it, like I said, but like stop setting a time frame to it, because it's not going to happen in 6 months or whenever I think that like this magical date. That's not going to happen. Like I just need to let it evolve and happen. And with all of this and like listening to all these different stories, it's really helped me to be like, okay, like just breathe and relax. I think that's just a part of like this society with like the instant fix. And like I don't like where I'm at with like not working and stuff, but I'm also like, I need to take this time for myself to heal and to like really get as much as I can. And with all of this support and like meeting all of you and this summit and everything has just been so incredible. And I'm like, this is a step forward, even though it's a tiny step and it's just like communicating and talking. Like this is a really big step, and I will soon realize that once I get to where I think I want to be, or what I envision for myself. So it's been great.
Yay.
Oh.
Peggy, I saw your hand up too.
Yes, I have to agree with Taylor. Listening to all of the speakers, it's like I took bits and pieces, and for me, I'm still in the classes stage. I left nursing 3 years ago because I refused to take the COVID vaccine. And in the process, my husband was involved in a major accident, and we're 1 year out of a major TBI, and we're still in recovery mode. But this is my me time, getting my feet back in the water. I've missed nursing so much and helping him with his business. He always made fun of me that I was too honest. I was too this, I was too that. And then today I heard the integrity and everything about nurses, and I'm like, boom, the light bulb went off. This is, this is why I don't fit like a puzzle piece in a perfect puzzle anywhere else, because it's so ingrained in me of being, a nurse and wanting to take care of people and having that integrity and that whole nursing profile, And so this being so new into the nurse coaching venture of my life, I feel like years down the road, when people ask me who are the shoulders I stand on, and it's everybody at this conference, or y'all are all going to be the shoulders I stand on. We are building a sphinx for me. We are going to have a new Egyptian sphinx that's going to look like a nurse when we get done with this.
That's great, Peggy. Hey, is anybody here in this group enough of an artist that they could make a sketch of that? I think that's a fabulous image.
Because look how long the Sphinx has been around, thousands upon thousands of years. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're building something to last a lifetime, not just our generation, but generations to come.
Right.
Would this be a nurse with a cap? Would it be a man, a woman, or,
Right. It would be androgynous, and it would have a stethoscope around its neck and a little cap, like you said.
I see a logo here somewhere.
And I think that automatically took me back to Rachel Dick when she was talking about creativity and how we have all lost our creativity throughout the years, and how she mentioned like the age range and stuff. And I think we all have that creative venture in us somewhere. It's just like we have to find it, and like everybody's is slightly different, but I don't know. That's instantly what I thought of. So wanted to share that.
One of the things I think of when I think of creativity is that it takes time. We talk about, we schedule our children so closely on their activities that, I remember just being turned out the door in the morning, and you came back for lunch and you came back for supper. And in the meantime, it was all creativity. You made your own whatever. And I noticed that, when I am so busy that I barely have time to take a breath or, eat properly, or all the things that I know I need to do, I find new ideas or even problem solving becomes much more difficult. Almost like we need to plan in fun.
Yeah.
I've also noticed that when I plan in fun and somebody calls me and wants something from me, that's the first thing that goes.
Yeah.
But I'm getting better at saying I have an appointment. They don't have to know the appointment's with me.
Yeah, that's right. That's actually a great business strategy right there. Everybody jot that down, is to make appointments with yourself. And so when because we're conditioned to give up our playtime, but if you say you have if you truly have an appointment, you can feel very clear about saying, I have an appointment. And the truth is, it's with yourself. That's one of the ones I use. I schedule in time for nothing. and that's a bona fide appointment just as much as with a client, my time with a client. Yeah. Sarah, I see your hand is up and you're driving.
Right.
You can handle it. Okay.
So I just had like a whirlwind of just general thoughts and ideas when I think Peggy was talking. One of the things I thought about was Brene Brown, where she said the opposite of belonging is fitting in. And I was thinking about what Peggy was saying, and probably a lot of our nursing experience we were talking about it yesterday, about going to school and kind of learning the highest ideals of what it means to be a nurse, and then getting into a system that doesn't allow us to necessarily actualize what we learned. And so as that relates to creativity, I think, that creativity can kind of get squashed because we're trying to fit in to a system that it doesn't feel aligned with our authentic version of what Nightingale envisioned nursing to be. And I think what we all can agree, what feels like how it should be, right? Why we all wanted to be nurses. And it also reminded me of the title of, the coaching competencies, but this is also often said that nursing is a science and an art. And so it is easy to forget that art portion of it too. And you're looking at labs and values and objectivity, and I'm kind of like free flowing thought, you guys. So stop me whenever. But with that objectivity, even some of the things I find myself exploring, Bonney was talking about, vulnerability, and someone helped me identify, oh yeah, I'm talking about our vulnerability model when I was talking about willingness. And it's also like, exploring kind of how spirituality is also involved in like that whole person healing. I went through a heart math course, and one of the speakers in that course was talking about how clinicians are trained to kind of keep this clinical objectivity, but actually what we end up doing is we disconnect from our own feelings in a situation. And if we can't connect with ourselves, we can't connect with, the client, right? Or the family. And then the last thought on spirituality, I guess I'll say, I was recently in the Amazon with the AHNA Healing Traditions experience. Highly recommend if anyone's looking to get closer to nature or closer to higher power. In one of the books that we were reading for that, a pharmacist was apprenticing with this shaman from the Peruvian Amazon. And after some time, she said, I want to invite you to come to San Francisco, come to the United States. I want to show you like Western medicine, right? And in the story, he came, but he said, I don't want to know about your medicine, though. And she was kind of like, oh, taken aback, but like, why? And he said, there's no magic in your medicine. There's no spirit or soul in your medicine. It's not alive. And I thought that was so interesting just to hear from a different perspective of like, I was validating because, I'm obviously not from Peru or the Amazon, but I have always had that feeling of like, yeah, it doesn't feel like we're connecting with people at times, or talking about moving through your day so quickly, or through a 12-hour shift, and we're just focusing on tasks and hang the IV bag and make sure you get the meds on time, and you got to do the wound care. Okay, and the wound vac can't be off too long, and then you got a family calling. How is that any environment to connect, certainly with yourself, in the worst case, like even just like eating a lunch or going to the bathroom, we've heard those stories, right? How can you even move intentionally to be able to really see people in their fullest sense in a system like that, So I'll stop there, but that was a flurry of ideas that was going on while everyone was talking. So thanks for listening.
I had a flurry of ideas while you were talking too. One of the things you said about fitting in, and I think it's one of the the gifts of nurses, is that we are not alike. And so to fit in exactly, like the round peg in the round hole, I think that denies what is really great about nurses, is when we really bring our whole self, and when we have done the work to know who we are, and be confident enough to just, move forward with that. There's going to be times in a situation where your gifts fit perfectly in, and there's going to be times when maybe you bring forward somebody else who their gifts are better in that situation. And those are the kinds of things where we as nurses need to support and raise each other. It can't be a competition. Who's the best nurse? Who's this nurse? Who's the, whatever. All that does is create division. And so anywhere we can find how we can come together is a really great thing. As far as, the task-oriented kind of thing, I think that comes from organizations that they don't know what nurses do. And in fact, nurses often don't seem to know what we do. If you try to explain to somebody, I can remember in my 30s trying to explain to family and friends what it was I was doing. And it was like, there's so much, and it's not something that you can say itemized, dots. You can say the tasks that we do, but that's really a minimal part of what it is that we're doing. And so the art of it is really making sure that that patient knows when you're putting your hands on them, you are focused on them, and that they are important to you, and their safety, their security, their fear, whatever is important to you. And that makes all the difference in how they experience whatever that task is that you are doing with them. And then the other thing I just wanted to say is I was on a call with Kathleen Bartholomew this morning, and she is just an absolute, if you haven't heard her, go on YouTube and look at Kathleen Bartholomew TEDx talk. And she is a storyteller. She just has a phenomenal brain that keeps coming up with new ideas and new ideas. And so the other person that we were talking to was talking about how nurses keep trying to work with the hospitals and with medicine and with everybody else. But what Kathleen was saying is that it's like we're on a train that's a 2,000-mile long train or chain train, and they're going 250 miles an hour in the wrong direction. They're going toward illness and disease, and nurses really want to be going toward health and prevention of disease. And so for us to be trying to adapt, we're going in the opposite direction. That's never going to work. So I feel like as long as we're willing to let other people determine what our job is, we're going to continue to be doing tasks. And I think that nurses need to be the ones that are determining anything that has to do with management of patient care, patient management. And that's essentially everything that's going on in the hospital, because we're the only ones that are there 365, 24/7. So we are the ones on that shift, on that day, in that department that really know what is the acuity of those patients, what is the ability, experience, strength, whatever of the staff that are scheduled for that day. And do we need more? That has to be decided that day by those people who are doing that work. And we need to take that back. I don't know exactly how that will happen within the setup that we have now, because we are not seen as people that our opinions are to be valued. Kathleen actually had a unit that she was the manager of, and she kept getting these edicts from above about how she will be staffing and how this will happen and this will happen, and here's your budget, don't dare go over that budget. And she just wadded them up and threw them in the wastebasket. And then she went out to her staff and she said, you decide what is necessary on this shift and I will back you up. And what she found was over time, they went over budget so minimally as to nobody even mention it to her. So what happened was probably nurses were limiting themselves maybe in some ways. But overall, they were making decisions that was for the best of the staff and the best of the patients, and it would work out well. But that takes a very confident person, I think, to step out away from those people who are determining what your job's going to be or what you're going to be paid or whatever else. She just really, her passion was for her staff and for her patients. That's where it was.
Thank you, Leanne. It's a very inspiring and informative, true story. And so,
if you don't know Kathleen, check her out because she's amazing.
Well, we're down to our last 5 minutes tonight. How shall we use it? I'm curious about what you've gotten from tonight's session. I think this has been a beautiful session together, conversation together. I'd love to hear what your takeaways are from this evening.
I'm going to say that my main takeaway is the commonality of trust. You know, trusting that you're a nurse because that's what your purpose is. Trusting in having patience and, you know, stepping back and not pushing yourself into a crazed mode. And I was going to say to Taylor that I enjoyed her story, and I feel like I just went through all that, and I've actually been done with the Inca program and had my board certification since the summer of 2022, and I just had a shift. So it was something I couldn't push myself through. It had to happen when I was open and trusting and believing in myself. And, you know, like maybe being rid of some of that vulnerability that we've already spoken about. But yeah, so I just think, you know, trust in the process, trust in the system, and most definitely trust in you, because you're here for a reason. And thankfully the system is growing, or the coaching is growing, and it's going to be around, and by all these presenters telling us all of these great stories this week, it's like, it's been around, it's going to get bigger. And the fact that they're getting CPT codes now, hopefully, you know, with billing, it's just all going to keep growing, and just be patient and trust.
Thank you, Marcia. I saw Sarah's hand up, but now I don't see her. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Sharon, you talked about the importance of like finding a mentor. And there's so much great information and energy. I feel like my energy is increasing as the summit goes on, actually. And I was wondering, how do you approach a mentor? How would you know if that person's a good fit? I mean, when do you know, like, hey, I found this person, or the person found me? How is that unfolded, either for any of the speakers here today that are here, or what was that process of finding a mentor like?
Okay. Do any of the presenters want to share something very quickly, because we're just about out of time?
Mentors come in the strangest of ways. Like, I mean, I don't even know how I found some of the people that I found, other than they came into my email. I never emailed them. I'm like, who is this person? And sometimes you hear someone speak and you're like, there's something there for you. It's that listening to that deep intuition, and then asking, literally just reaching out and asking, hey, can I talk to you and see if you're a good fit? Get to know them before you hire them, and make sure that you both resonate enough with each other that you want to work. And it's as much about the coach as the coachee. I think you really want to have that connection with the other person. In my experience, those are the best coaches and mentors that I've had.
And I would add to that to really look at their values. If you can get close enough to see, how they live, how they work over at least a little bit of time, get references. Think about if you were going to have a surgeon do something major that's going to impact your life. Well, your coach is going to impact your life too. And so get references if you can. Talk to other people that they've worked with. That's one of my recommendations. And see what the true results are that they're having. It's very easy to use language and words that sound exciting and convincing, and it's easy to study people's psychology and use the right words, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can actually help you reach your goals. So that's what I suggest, in addition to what Teresa said.
One last little tiny thing, and then I know we have to go, but there's a book called How to Get the Most Out of Coaching on Amazon. And it's for the person who's going to be coached. So it's information for yourself about what coaching is and what to expect and how to build that relationship. I found it very valuable. I thought it was really good, both as a coach and being coached. So check it out.
Go ahead,
You know the
Leanne.
author?
Yeah, I just want to say goodbye. I have to leave.
Okay.
Thank
Do you
you.
know
This
the
has been
author?
wonderful.
Oh, the
One-
author,
If you
Teresa.
give me 1 second, I will look for it. 1 second.
While she's doing that, I'll say thank you to everyone. Feel free to leave or stay until she gets the author, either one. And I'm glad we've got to be together tonight, and I look forward to seeing you the next 2 nights if you're free.
I put in the chat about the how to save the chat if anybody wants to save that. I put instructions in there if anybody wants to save the chat and the information that we put in there.
And it's
Thank
by
you.
Karen Davis and Alex Mills, but I put the link in the chat.
Okay, so the link is there at the end of the chat. If you click on it before we close the Zoom, you'll have it on your browser and you can follow up. Okay.
Ladies, good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.